Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. At 7:42 that Wednesday night, my boyfriend stopped replying. I am Aaron and I was 28 that night. Back then it felt harmless, just one unanswered message on my screen. Now I know that was the first crack in everything. We had been sending dumb memes all afternoon and then nothing. My phone stayed in my hand while I stirred dinner. Every few seconds I checked the screen like a trained dog. No new bubble and no reply, just that last stupid joke. I told myself he dropped his phone somewhere dumb and rolled my eyes. By 8:30 I had finished eating and the silence felt heavier. He always checked in after work, even on chaotic days. After 7 years together, I believed I could read his patterns. I opened our chat and stared at the last long thread. My brain whispered that something was off. I told it to relax. I still refreshed the screen twice like that would kickstart him. At 8:40 when I typed, "Are you alive?" then erased it. It sounded dramatic in my head, and I hated that. Instead I wrote, "Hey, call me when you get a second." The message showed as delivered and then just sat there smug. You know that feeling when your chest gets tight for no clear reason. By 9 I gave up pretending to be chill and hit call. The ringtone went on and then died into voicemail. His recorded greeting sounded suddenly stiff, like a stranger reading instructions. I did not leave a message because my throat locked up. Instead I hung up and dialed again, as if repetition meant control. On the third try I threw the phone onto the couch in disgust. Then I grabbed it back immediately like it might apologize somehow. I texted his coworker Mark you at the office with him. Mark replied 2 minutes later that everyone left hours ago and asked why. I typed it as nothing, just checking, then erased the second part. I kept telling myself I refused to be that controlling girlfriend stereotype. You know, the one who tracks every move and explodes over delays. Inside I was already scrolling through car accidents and hospital corridors in my head. Now as I write this, I know those images were generous. The real reason for his silence was colder than anything I imagined. By 10 my apartment felt too small, like the walls listened to me pace. I checked his location even though I hated doing that, and it failed. Last active an hour ago stared back at me like a joke. I tried to watch a show and missed entire scenes without noticing. Every notification that buzzed was nothing, and every non-buzz felt louder. Around 10:30 I opened our last selfie and studied his face for clues. He looked relaxed there and almost smug, like someone who trusted tomorrow. I hated that I zoomed in like an investigator instead of a girlfriend. Finally I grabbed my keys and told myself I just needed reassurance. I wish I could say I stayed home and trusted him that night. The drive to his place usually felt automatic, but that night every light dragged. I kept glancing at the passenger seat like he might suddenly appear there laughing. My mind jumped between a crash and a flat tire and some stupid surprise plan. Those guesses were not exactly kind, they still assumed he cared. I had no category yet for the truth that waited ahead. His building came into view and my stomach dropped harder than during any argument. His usual spot near the entrance sat empty like a missing tooth. I circled the lot slowly then faster, scanning for his ridiculous bumper sticker. No car with his plates and nothing that even looked close. That was the first moment I thought he might have chosen this. I parked way too crooked, then climbed out and locked the car twice. The entrance buzzer was pointless because I had my own key now. I still pressed it once and flinched at how loud it sounded. No footsteps came down the hall and no irritated neighbor called back. I unlocked the door to the stairwell and my hands were shaking hard. The climb to his floor felt longer than usual and my legs burned. Halfway up I almost turned back, told myself this was intrusive and wrong. If he was fine he would be pissed, if he was hurt I needed to help. That was the bargain I made with myself as I reached his hallway. I still slowed down before the last turn like I could delay whatever waited. His door was never open, he hated drafts and outside noise. That night it stood cracked a few inches with the lock turned and chain loose. For a second I thought someone else must already be inside checking on him. I knocked once anyway, and my own voice answered back off the walls. My hand closed around the knob and I pushed the door wider, heart pounding like it might break free. The air inside felt wrong in a way I could not name yet. I stepped over the threshold and called his name again, softer this time. No voice answered and no movement followed, only that open space waiting. If I had turned around right, then I would still believe he simply va.
Nicht.
I stepped fully into the apartment and the quiet hit hard. Right away I noticed gaps where his life should be. Empty spots on shelves, blank stretches on walls, an exposed patch on the floor. It looked less abandoned and more like someone clocking out of us. For a second I actually whispered hello like an idiot. The word bounced around and came back thinner than it left. I walked toward the living area and counted missing things without wanting to. Console gone, speakers gone, the framed photos from trips stripped off completely. It felt less like chaos and more like a checklist completed in advance. I opened the hallway closet and stared at the hangers in a row. His jackets were missing, his shoes were missing, my coat still hung there alone. That detail hit harder than the empty space everywhere else. He cleared his side and left mine like some weird courtesy. Even in that shock, I thought this almost feels polite, which made me sick. Back then my brain still searched for generous explanations. Maybe he got robbed, maybe some emergency forced him to pack fast. I grabbed my phone and checked the lock on the inside door. No damage, no scratches, nothing that looked forced or rushed. The only thing broken in that place was whatever I thought we were. I walked into the bedroom and stopped just inside the doorway. Only one nightstand remained and it was mine, cluttered and messy. His side of the bed was stripped, mattress bare where his pillows should rest. Drawers on his empty table sat open and completely cleared out. This was not an accident, and my body knew it before my mind caught up. I yanked open the dresser like proof might jump out at me. My folded stuff sat there crooked, exactly how I always left it. His stacks were gone, not even a stray sock or old receipt. You do not erase yourself like that in one afternoon by coincidence. I remember thinking, if I find one thing of his, I can still deny this. I checked the bathroom and stared at the sink in disbelief. My products still crowded the corner in a chaotic little cluster. The space where his razor and toothbrush used to sit was just bare. That tiny rectangle of nothing twisted in my chest more than the bedroom. He planned this down to what he did not want touching his new life. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped my phone into the sink. I opened our messages again like he might answer mid-disappear. The unread line felt like a brick on my screen, heavy and solid. I texted you home, everything okay, then stared at the empty chat. No typing bubbles, no read status, just that stubborn silence watching me. I walked back to the living area and spotted his laptop charger missing. The coffee table looked clear except for my water bottle from last visit. That was the part that really messed with my head in that moment. He had moved out around my belongings like they were obstacles in his plan. Back then, I still wondered if he expected to come back for me eventually. I heard footsteps in the hallway and rushed to the open door. The landlord shuffled past with a stack of mail tucked under his arm. I stepped out quickly and blocked the path without even thinking. "Have you seen him tonight?" I blurted out before I could breathe. The man frowned at me like I had asked if the sky moved. "You are Aaron Wright?" he asked while scanning my face. I nodded and my stomach twisted so hard I thought I might throw up. He looked over my shoulder into the half-cleared apartment once more. "He checked out this morning, the keys are supposed to be with you now." Those words did not land right away, they just hung there buzzing. "Checked out how?" I asked, my voice sounded strangely far. "He transferred the lease, handled payment, said he was relocating for work." The landlord shrugged like it was boring paperwork and not my entire life. "He mentioned you were aware and would be stopping by to grab the rest." That last part slid under my skin like a splinter I still feel. I laughed once, sharp and ugly, because denial needed something to do. "No," I said too loudly, "I am not aware of anything at all." The landlord shifted his weight and glanced down the hallway in discomfort. "Look, everything was signed, I cannot get between you two." He handed me an envelope with my name on it and walked away fast. The envelope felt heavier than it should as I turned it over. My handwriting stared up from the front because it was our rent envelope. Inside, there was only a receipt with his signature and a date. The date was from last week, not that morning like he claimed. He had handled this quietly days before our last normal conversation. Back inside, I set the receipt on the table and opened our banking app. We used one shared account for rent and boring monthly stuff. The balance looked lower than it should by a lot. My eyes scanned the recent transactions line by line, getting tighter each row. One charge jumped out halfway down the list and defroze everything. Airfare. One way. Not even from our nearest airport, from another city hours away. Purchased 3 weeks earlier while we were still sharing meals and plans. The departure date was tomorrow, and the destination might as well been Mars. I remember whispering no again, softer this time like I could rewind this. My thumb hovered over the transaction details and finally tapped them open. His name sat there as the traveler, along with the city across the country. There was also a seat selection note and an upgrade fee. He made himself comfortable for his escape and left me standing on the ground. I screenshotted the flight and sent it to his number without a caption. The message delivered immediately, which told me his phone still worked fine. I watched the little gray line under the image like it might change color. Nothing updated, nothing bounced back, the universe just ignored me. In that instant, I stopped worrying he was hurt and started realizing something worse. I dialed again anyway because habits do not vanish at the same speed. The call rang fewer times than before, then flipped to voicemail. Hearing his recorded voice while staring at the cleared room made my skin crawl. I hung up before the beep because I refused to beg into that fake greeting. Even now, I wish I had left one last furious message just for myself. A part of me still thought maybe there was an emergency explanation. So I opened my email and searched his name like some amateur investigator. There it was, a forwarded confirmation for a corporate relocation package. The timestamp hit me almost as hard as the subject line did. He got that approval a month earlier and never mentioned a single word. My first reaction was not rage, it was humiliation so sharp I felt small. How did I miss this? How did I sleep next to someone building an exit? I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself and nearly tipped it. I wanted to scream, cry, smash something, but the tears refused to show. Instead, I stood there in that half-empty room breathing like I had been punched. I walked to the front door again and stared at the hallway outside. I thought about chasing the landlord, demanding more details he clearly lacked. I pictured calling every mutual friend and blasting the group chat. I did none of that in that moment because shock kept me oddly quiet. All I could think was, if this is real, then the story of us is over. My brain tried one last trick and whispered he might still come back tonight. Maybe this was some bizarre test or breakdown or midlife reboot. Maybe he planned to call from the airport with a long apology. I checked the flight time again and then the clock on my phone. There was no time for him to pack today because he had already done it. Standing in that doorway, I realized something that still hurts to admit. He did not disappear, he did not get taken, he did not lose control. He arranged every signature, every withdrawal, every small removal of himself. I was the only piece he did not bother to relocate properly. In that chapter of my life, I went from partner to leftover in a single night. I posted the first message about him less than an hour later. My hands still shook from that apartment, but my brain wanted witnesses. I opened my main social app and hit the status box like a reflex. If I kept this just between me and those empty rooms, I would explode. The first version came out vicious and way too specific. I wrote his full name, the city on that ticket, every ugly detail. Reading it back, I heard my own rage louder than anything else. I deleted it and stared at the blank box again. I needed help, not a public execution I could not take back. The second attempt was shorter and somehow worse. It sounded trapped between a breakup song and a pity plea. I erased that one too and rubbed my forehead hard. Finally, I typed something bare that still told the truth. Anyone know how to process being ghosted after 7 years and finding out they moved across the country? Before I could soften it, I hit post and tossed the phone aside. Instant regret surged up my throat because the internet never forgets. Then the first notification pinged and the next and the next. Comments rolled in faster than I could finish reading the last. I watched my private disaster turn into a group project in real time. Most replies were what you expect from decent people. He is trash, you deserve better, I am so sorry. Friends dropped heart emojis and angry faces like digital hugs and torches. A few asked what happened and where I was and if I felt safe. I answered with short lines because the full story still felt radioactive. Then a message request appeared from a name I did not recognize. The preview line was just, "Is this about Daniel?" My stomach clenched so hard I had to sit down on the floor. I opened it even though every instinct screamed to wait. Once you open that kind of door you leave. Or get the old version back. "Hey, I saw your post," the stranger wrote. "Can I ask how you know him?" For a second I considered lying or ignoring or blocking. Instead I typed "we are" or "we're together" and hit send. The little typing bubble appeared immediately like she had been waiting. "I know this is weird, but I think we should compare notes." That was her next line, and my vision blurred for a second. She sent a quick "sorry, this must be brutal," then another bubble appeared. "Have you seen his other profile?" she asked. My chest went tight because apparently I had not seen the full show. I flipped over to search and punched in his username variations. The main account I knew popped up right away, then another under his nickname. The second one listed a different city than ours with a cute little skyline emoji. I opened the grid and felt the air leave my lungs. His face stared back from recent posts I had never seen before. He looked relaxed on a balcony, a view I did not recognize. Another picture showed him at some bar with new coworkers tagged. He wore the same jacket I bought him last winter, and that hurt more than it should. Scrolling made my heart hammer faster because every recent shot was from that new city. Nothing on that page hinted I existed at all, not even a shadow. Then I hit the most recent post and everything tilted. He was at the beach with a woman pressed against his side. Her head rested on his shoulder, his hand sat firmly on her hip. They were both grinning like people who had never heard of consequences. The caption read "Weekend with my favorite person," and I actually felt dizzy. Back in the message window, the stranger sent another line. "In case this is you, I am the girl in that last picture." My fingers went numb and I had to force them to move. I asked how long they had been seeing each other, then just stared. Those seconds before her answer stretched out like a dare from the universe. She wrote since early spring, then followed with another text. "He told me his last relationship ended ages ago, and she was clingy." Reading that word made my jaw lock so hard it hurt. I asked if he mentioned my name at all or anything close. Her reply came back fast and simple and somehow even worse. "No, he never mentioned anyone specific, just some messy history out of state." She added that he had talked about a controlling ex who kept calling. I knew instantly that was his version of me, and my whole body went cold. I asked for proof because denial can sprint even with both legs broken. She answered by dropping a screenshot into the chat like a bomb. It was a slice of their conversation from 2 weeks earlier. He complained about a woman who would not let go and kept texting. He used phrases I recognized from arguments we had, twisted into jokes. He wrote, "I swear I am done with that chapter, trust me babe." Watching him recycle our wreckage as small talk made my skin crawl. I scrolled up in their chat and saw our shared timeline from the outside. Photos she sent him matched weekends I believed he was working late. Dates and locations lined up against nights I waited for messages that never came. He had not disappeared on a whim, he had simply changed which screen he answered. Seeing it laid out in blue and gray bubbles felt worse than any slap. At some point I realized I had not responded for several minutes. She sent another message asking if I was still there. "Yeah," I wrote, just trying not to throw my phone through a window. I told her we had been together for years and that he lived with me part-time. There was a long pause and I pictured her pacing some small room like I was. Then she called. The ringtone cut through my thoughts and I panicked. Part of me did not want to hear her voice at all. Another part needed to so I could accept she was real. I answered on the last ring because curiosity beat pride by half a second. Her voice came out tight and shaky but surprisingly calm. She asked again how long we had been involved because she could not process it. I told her the exact number of years and listened to her breathe out hard. She cursed under her breath and I could hear cabinet doors slamming. You realize he told me he never wanted anything serious before this year. That line hit like fresh impact even though I should have expected it. I told her about his trip last month, carefully skipping anything that repeated earlier details. She told me about a visit he made to her city that same weekend. We pieced it together like some awful puzzle built from lies and calendar alerts. Every overlap we found turned into another nail in whatever story I used to believe. At one point she asked if I still loved him and I froze. The truthful answer was tangled and ugly and not ready yet. Instead I said I did not even know who that person is now. She exhaled on the line and said same, which hurt in a different way. We were strangers joined by the same ghost. Wearing one body. We talked about whether to confront him together or separately. Her idea was a joint call to catch him off guard between flights. Mine was a long, detailed message he could never spin away from. Underneath both plans was the childish hope he might suddenly tell the truth. Even in that moment of joint betrayal, I wanted some version of closure. We checked the flight information again and did rough time math. If the plane left on schedule, he was either in the air or landing. She refreshed his location on her app and swore softly. It already showed him near her city, not mine. He had routed his escape toward her arms, not into some lonely new start. When we finally ended the call, my apartment felt unreal. I paced between couch and window like a cage I could not see. Every step stirred up another detail I had overlooked in the past month. A jacket left in my car, a sudden hang-up, a repeated excuse. Looking back now, the signs were not subtle, I just chose not to read them. Notifications kept lighting up my screen from the original post. Friends argued in the comments about what counted as cheating and abandonment. One coworker of his liked a reply that mentioned his name, then unliked fast. That tiny slip would matter a lot more the next day. At the time I simply screenshotted it and filed it under weird. The last thing I did before collapsing onto the couch was save that beach photo. I cropped it 3 ways, one with his face, one with hers, one with both. Each version felt like a different crime scene I could not look away from. I set my phone on the table and stared at the ceiling until morning. Back then I thought that picture was the worst piece of evidence. I had not seen the messages from his office yet. The screenshots arrived while I was still in yesterday's clothes. A new message request flashed from an unfamiliar name with his company logo. My pulse jumped before I even opened it, like my body recognized trouble first. By then I had learned that every ding meant another layer of damage. "Hey, I work with Daniel," the first line read. I froze halfway between couch and kitchen, toothbrush still in my hand. "I saw your post last night and something is really bothering me. Can I send you a few captures from our team chat? It feels wrong to keep them." I sat down hard and typed, "Yeah, send whatever you have." 3 images dropped in, stacked in the window like evidence on a table. He warned me they were from their internal channel and asked me not to share names. That little disclaimer told me these were not just casual memes. I tapped the first picture and it opened on my whole screen. At the top was his username with a stupid smiling avatar. Heading to the new job next month, he had written, "Finally cutting loose for real." Underneath it someone replied about fresh starts and no more drama back home. The next lines came from him again and my throat went dry. "Gotta do it clean," he wrote, no dragging out some long breakup speech. Just rip it off and let her figure it out from context. She clings on anything I give her, better to go quiet and move on. I swear I could hear my own blood in my ears reading that. He made it sound like I was hanging off his ankle in public. Another coworker dropped a laughing emoji and said, "Savage man." Only one responded with, "Dude, that's rough for her, you sure about that?" The colleague who messaged me circled that last line in red. That was me. His next text said, "I felt sick after reading his plan." I asked if he told them we were still together, or if he rewrote history. The reply popped up fast, like he had waited to confess this part. He told everybody you two had been basically done for a long time. In his version you were on and off and he was checked out. He said you would blow up if he told you about the transfer. So he needed to bounce quickly, his words, before you dragged it out. My cheeks burned even though I was alone in that room. Knowing he lied at work hurt, knowing he performed me as a character hurt worse. I asked for the rest of the screenshots, fingers hitting the keys too hard. More images appeared, each one a different tiny punch to my ribs. One snapshot showed him sending an outline of a speech to the group. Thinking of telling her we grew in different directions and deserve happiness, read the draft. Someone replied, looks solid, keep it gentle so she does not go nuclear. Below that he wrote, yeah, maybe, or I just pack and text later. So he had rehearsed this conversation, just not with me. He crowdsourced lines for a breakup he never delivered in person. I sat there imagining him at his desk, practicing honesty as a hypothetical. Then choosing the cheapest option and abandoning the whole script. Another capture contained a photo from a going-away party at the office. There he was holding a cake with his new city written on it. Underneath he had captioned, last step before freedom, wish me well. Okay. He did that celebration the same week we talked about vacation plans, I realized slowly. I asked the colleague when that party happened, my hands trembling on the screen. He checked his calendar and sent back the date in a single line. It landed right in the middle of a week he spent at my place. That was the week he told me things felt really stable, no joke. To his coworkers he joked about escape, to me he promised normal. I do not know which version makes me angrier now. The performance at work or the performance on my couch. Both were practiced, neither involved actual courage. There was one last image in the thread, and I hesitated. It showed a private chat between him and the same colleague. You think she will chase me across state lines, he had written. The answer said, not if you cut the cord clean, stop answering and she will move on. My jaw clenched so hard I had to remind myself to relax it. He turned my future panic into a casual prediction with a smiley. I pictured myself refreshing messages while they workshopped my silence. It felt like watching myself from above, trapped in a show I never auditioned for. I thanked the colleague because I did not know what else to do. He apologized for not reaching out sooner, said he kept hoping Daniel would do the right thing. I told him that ship was not just gone, it had sunk somewhere offshore. He asked if I was safe, and that simple question almost broke me. After we hung up, my screen lit with another notification. This one came from the other woman, whose name I finally learned that morning. She wrote, it's Lena, by the way, I could not sleep, something is off here. Then she sent a picture of a closed drawer and a short video. The clip started with her hand on the handle, breathing loud. She whispered, I am at his new place, he is out running errands. She pulled the drawer open and the camera dipped inside. What she showed me next made everything tilt sideways again. A small box sat in the corner under folded shirts. She lifted it with 2 fingers like it might burn. When she opened it, I saw a ring catching the light. She flipped the lid to show the receipt tucked underneath with a date stamped from months earlier. My chest tightened in a completely new way when I caught that date. It sat weeks before the first time he mentioned money being tight. I remembered him turning down dinners, blaming a budget he had never cared about. He was not saving for our future, he was funding a secret question I never heard. I typed, whose is that, and my fingers shook over the keyboard. Lena zoomed closer to the receipt, and I saw my own ring size written. He had used my measurement 100%, there was no chance that matched hers. Then she flipped the camera back to her face, eyes wide and furious. He told me he never wanted to marry anyone before me, she blurted out. He told you what, I asked, reading every twitch in her jaw. He said he ran from pressure in an old relationship and regretted wasting years. He said he would never let fear ruin something real again. Hearing those recycled lines aimed in a new direction made my stomach twist. He bought a ring with my size, rehearsed promises with her, skipped the part where honesty lives. Lena stared into the phone and shook her head slowly. I feel like we both walked into the same script, just different acts. We sat there on video, 2 strangers linked by one man's cowardice. She told me he had a little notebook in the nightstand too. She had opened it looking for headphones and found pages of sentences. Half of them were practice speeches about tough talks he never gave. One page read, need to tell Aaron I cannot commit yet, underline that it is about me. Another version switched my name for hers with the same lazy phrasing. Over and over, he wrote out ways to be decent without ever following through. It was like watching a driver plan safe routes and still choose to crash on purpose. Lena asked what we should do with all of this, voice raw. Part of me wanted to mail the ring back with every screenshot. Part of me wanted to throw the whole box into a river and walk away. Instead, I told her we would think before we moved, because he already counted on us reacting blindly. Even now, I keep one of those screenshots saved in a hidden album. Not the beach picture, not the ring, not the party. The one where he wrote, "Just go quiet and let her figure it out." That single line is the clearest version of him I ever got, and I had to steal it from a group chat he never thought I would see. I held his contact open and hovered over the block button. My thumb shook like it belonged to somebody else, not me. If I blocked him, there was no more fantasy about explanations. If I did not, I would keep jumping every time my phone lit up. I stared until my eyes burned, then I tapped and watched his name vanish. Right after, panic rushed in and yelled undo. I opened the settings, gain and checked 3 times to be sure. His number sat on the blocked list, quiet and small. I added his work line, his old backup, every version I knew. For once, I chose to close a door before he could slam it first. Next, I erased him from my messaging apps one by one. I removed him from shared groups without warning and ignored the pings. Someone asked what happened and I replied, long story, handling it privately. That was not fully true, but I needed fewer eyes on my collapse. Keeping him reachable started to feel like keeping poison in the cabinet. Email was the only place I hesitated. I opened a new message and filled in his address anyway. The subject line stayed blank because nothing felt accurate enough. Then the words poured out fast, faster than I could edit. Anger, pain, humiliation, every piece of it came out in blunt sentences. I told him he turned me into a ghost while still breathing. I listed exactly what I knew without showing my sources. I described the apartment, the flights, the other account, the ring. I wrote that he could have ended things with one honest conversation. By the time I finished, the email stretched longer than some essays. Reading it back, I heard how much I still begged. Not for him, for a version of myself that had not seen receipts. I imagined him skimming it on a layover and smirking. I pictured him forwarding it to friends as more proof I was unstable. That thought burned enough that I dragged the whole thing to drafts. I sat there, staring at the word drafts like it taunted me. Then I opened the folder and selected the message without rereading. My finger hovered for a second, one last tiny funeral. I hit delete and watched the screen return to empty. Choosing silence felt like ripping out a splinter that had grown roots. Lena called that night before I could change my mind. Her voice sounded tired, flat, like she had not slept at all. "He keeps sending me pictures from around town," she blurted. No caption, no explanation, just little updates like nothing happened. I leaned against the wall and felt my jaw tight. "What do you want to do about him now?" I asked. She laughed once, sharp, no humor at all in it. "Part of me wants to ambush him with everything we have. Part of me wants to mail that ring to a pawn shop. Mostly, I want him to wake up alone one morning and finally notice." We tried to draft a joint message and it fell apart. Every version drifted into therapy homework instead of strategy. I wrote lines about betrayal, she added lines about disrespect. None of it felt like it would land where it needed. The more we typed, the clearer it became that he did not care. At some point, we both just stopped moving our thumbs. The text box sat there full of righteous sentences that solved nothing. "What if we just stop feeding him attention?" I suggested. "Even if it is justified, it is still contact, and that is all he wants." She went quiet long enough that I thought the call dropped. "You might be right," she finally whispered, sounding exhausted. "I am blocking him tonight, then I am booking therapy tomorrow." I told her I had already started step 1 and was working on step 2. We promised to check on each other, not to talk about him. It felt like signing a weird little treaty, but I needed it. The next morning, I searched for counselors and clicked the first available opening. The intake form asked, "Why are you seeking help right now?" I stared at the question and typed, "My boyfriend evaporated from my life, and I need to understand why I stayed." Seeing that line on the screen made my throat tighten. I hit submit before I could water it down. In the first session, I sat on the edge of the chair. My therapist asked what brought me in, but she already knew the outline. Still, hearing the question out loud knocked something loose. "He left without talking to you," she said. "Is that accurate?" I nodded and felt my hands grip my knees too hard. "Walk me through the moment it became real," she continued gently. I skipped the early panic and went straight to the empty drawers. Words kept tumbling out, faster than I meant to give them. Every time I tried to sound calm, my voice cracked anyway. It felt less like a story and more like giving evidence. "Do you notice how often you blame yourself in that story?" That was the first time she interrupted my spiral. I started to argue that accountability mattered, that I should have noticed. She held up a hand and waited until I met her eyes. "He lied," she said. "You trusted. Those are not equal roles." I wanted to reject that so badly at first. Self-blame felt safer because it meant I still had control. If I caused it, maybe I could prevent it next round. If he was just cruel, then sometimes pain just happens for nothing. That idea hung there like a weight between us. She gave me homework that sounded stupid at the time. Write a version of events where you do not apologize for existing. At home, I rolled my eyes and opened a fresh document anyway. I forced myself to describe his choices instead of my reactions. By the end, I barely recognized the girl who kept begging in my head. Months went by in real life, though they blur when I look back. I closed our shared account, moved the remaining money, and changed passwords. I mailed his last couple of random items to his company with no note. I replaced the tight silence in my apartment with podcasts and white noise. Every small change felt flimsy at first, then started to feel normal. Then one afternoon, his sister appeared in my messages. Her name flashing on my phone made my stomach lurch all over again. "Hey, can we talk?" her first line read. "It is about my brother. I know you probably do not want to hear it." I almost deleted it on the spot. Curiosity won for the millionth time, but on a shorter leash. I answered, "What is this regarding?" Nothing more. She replied with a long paragraph about him not handling things well. She wrote that he was dealing with stress and made terrible choices. Attached was a screenshot of something he apparently typed for me. It was an apology, or its costume anyway. He talked about fear and confusion and not wanting to hurt me. He claimed he did not know how to say goodbye face to face. He mentioned therapy and reflection and how he grew since leaving. The word sorry showed up twice, but never attached to anything concrete. His sister added her own note under it. "He asked me to send this because he is ashamed," she wrote. "I know that does not fix anything, but I hate seeing both of you hurting. He cares about you, even if it does not look that way right now." Reading that last sentence actually made me laugh out loud. Not the nice kind of laugh, the sharp kind that breaks the air. I remembered the group chat lines, the rehearsed speeches, the quiet exit. If this was care, I did not want to see neglect. My thumb hovered over the keyboard while I thought through old habits. Past me would have sent 3 pages and a list of demands. Instead, I opened a new note and wrote freely first. I listed everything I could respond with, unfiltered and mean. Then I deleted the whole thing and started again with intention. I typed 2 simple sentences and read them out loud. They sounded like someone I wanted to become. "Thank you for reaching out," I finally wrote back to her. "I appreciate the message, but I am not interested in any more contact with him." I told her I was working on healing and that silence helped. I asked her not to mediate or deliver anything further, spoken or written. Then I hit send and waited for the usual wave of regret. It did not come, which surprised me more than anything else. She answered that she understood and wished me well. No guilt trip, no pressure, just a small decent response. For the first time in months, I felt like the adult in the room. It scared me a little how good that felt. The last thing I did for myself was clear out my photo gallery. I scrolled past every picture with his face and paused. Deleting them all at once felt too much like erasing my own history. So I picked a handful that showed me happy with friends and cropped him out. My life did not start with him, and it was not ending there. One evening much later, an unknown number buzzed on my table. The area code matched his new city and my chest thudded. I watched it ring until voicemail grabbed it and then another ping followed. No message, only a missed call from nowhere I wanted to revisit. I blocked that number without checking, then placed the phone face down. Here is the part I never thought I would mean. I do not want his side of the story anymore. I have the version that matters, the one written in actions and silence. He thought walking away without speaking put him in control. Ending this on my terms is the one thing he does not get to rewrite.